Welcome to the hearing room of the Roman governors. Now, what we see around us are just shallow walls and some paving stones, but this seems to be one of the largest and most adorned halls in the entire compound of the Praetorium of the Romans. In here, we believe, the Roman governor would sit and try the people, hear their appeals, and so on and so forth. Why do we think so? Because of one thing we've discovered here, which is very unique, and unfortunately you can't see it at the moment. It's right underneath this section of the hall. It's a row of pillars carrying the floor. They're not too high, about that height, but they're carrying the floor, so there's a space under the floor. We immediately recognize this space as an infrastructure, as the underground heating system of this room. It is unique because no other room in this palace had this unique feature. And if we believe that the governor spent most of his time here ruling, he would need a heating system during the winter. It's very cold here in the winter, and the breeze coming from the sea makes it even worse. So the heating system leads us to believe that around here the governor would be sitting trying the people. And if so, perhaps we can link this fact to something we read in the New Testament. In the book of Acts, chapter 24, we hear about a certain man whose name is Shaul. He was a Jew who became a believer in Jesus, and then his name changed from Shaul to Paul. This is Saint Paul. Saint Paul preaches in Jerusalem, and then he's arrested by the Roman soldiers and then brought to Caesarea to be tried by the Roman governor. And it says in chapter 24, verse 31, "So the soldiers, carrying out their orders, took Paul with them during the night and brought him as far as Antipatris. The next day they let the cavalry go on with him while they returned to the barracks. When the cavalry arrived in Caesarea, they delivered the letter to the governor, the letter of accusations against Paul to the governor, and handed Paul over to him. The governor read the letter and asked what province he was from, and he interrogates Paul, and of course Paul answers the questions. The governor, whose name is Felix, interrogates Paul, and eventually he decides to postpone his verdict. For how long? Well, as it happened, it took 2 years. During these 2 years, Paul was in prison. Somewhere. In a moment we'll ask, where could that be? But the audition, the interrogation, probably took place right here. Eventually, 2 years later, the Roman governor was sent back to Rome, and a new governor came. His name is Festus. And when that governor comes, Festus asks Paul whether he would be willing to be tried in Jerusalem before the Sanhedrin. And he says, "No, I'm a Roman citizen. I demand to be tried by the emperor himself." Now, as we all know, this was a grave mistake, because indeed Paul is later taken to Rome, tried by the emperor, and executed in Rome.